'tis the season, right? But I ain't talking about Christmas. I'm talking about fall time. Fall, my favorite time of the year. Let's see, I don't live in Midwest anymore. I live in Texas, so we got the state fair, y'all. I love the state fair. State fair is very fond to me. October 12th, 2013, fun fact for y'all, was the day I asked my now wife to be my girlfriend. So it was at the state fair, and me and my wife since then have been going to the fair every year, and we absolutely love it. Fall time, baby. Man, although I'm not in Indiana, I really miss the fall weather that Indiana brings. You want to talk about impeccable scenery? The leaves changing color in Indiana is remarkable, especially if y'all drive towards Bloomington and all the hills. Oh my goodness. There's nothing like it. There's nothing like it. Texas can't hold a candle to Indiana when it comes to scenery. It's just my opinion. We got the crisp air, Notre Dame football, man. I love the fall time. Another thing, Halloween. So it begs a question. Should Christians be celebrating Halloween? If you are new to the YouTube channel, my name is Ty. I'm the co-creator of #ItIsWritten. What we do here on my YouTube channel is equip and encourage believers to continue to do what God has called you to do. Let me tell y'all a little story. Growing up, my mother was vicious when it came to Halloween and making sure we didn't associate ourselves with anything demonic or anything of the dead. And so that definitely means anything that had to do with media. So we talking about movies and books, some of like the great Disney classics like Halloween Town and the cult classics like Texas Chainsaw Massacre. My sisters and I definitely had to sneak to watch those things. Sorry, Mom. So although my mother was real strict about Halloween, she wasn't a monk when it came to stuff like that, right? Like, she didn't isolate us from the world. There's some things as a parent, like, and I'm realizing that now that I'm a father, that you just can't shield your kids from. The other day, my daughter was singing some rap song that I know is inappropriate. It's like, how in the world did she hear that, right? And so kind of the same thing with my mom. She didn't, isolate us in terms of Halloween. I mean, instead, my mom like boldly embraced what Jesus prayed for in the book of John, chapter 17, starting in verse 14 through 15. I'm going to read that right now. It says, I have given them your word, and the world has hated them because they are not of the world, just as I am not of the world. I do not ask that you make them or take them out of the world, but that you keep them from the evil one. So my mom lived by that motto, to be in the world, but not of the world. Now, here's what that kind of looked like. Now, this is not my answer. This is just what was modeled for me by my mother. So like Halloween night would roll around, right? My mom will allow us to dress up as long as we weren't dressing up as something demonic, spiritual, or witchcraft, or something worshiping the dead, okay? And so she allowed us to dress up, usually me, Spider-Man. It is what it is. And we would pass out candy. And the people will come up and she would attach scriptures to the candies as well as Bible tracts. And not too long ago, I asked her, Mom, why and how did you come up with this thing? And she said, listen, this is a time where people literally come to your door. Why wouldn't we share the gospel? And you know what? I thought about that and I'm like, she's right. Like, this is a time where people come to us. It's low hanging fruit. And I really think that's why the church does a good job with these harvest festivals or trunk or treats or whatever. They kind of refurbish. They kind of like a revamp, or I don't know, maybe even you can say reconcile Halloween by inviting people in and hosting things and asking the community to come into the fold. And it's just low hanging fruit. It's just easy. And I know a lot of y'all may have some issues with that. And like, nah, they still copping out, whatever. But before we like wholly judge, how my mama did it or how these churches doing, it's important to understand what we're actually celebrating, right? Because what we're celebrating now doesn't mean we're holding true to the orthodoxy of what it was back then. You get what I'm saying? So let me give you a rundown of how Halloween came to be Halloween. It's actually a Celtic root pagan worship. It is pagan worship, okay, in which they were celebrating or marking the time between harvest and the days getting shorter and the nights getting longer. So darkness and the fact that, the frigid temperatures brought about, a decrease in the harvest. It brought about illness and things like that. So they were just marking that time of the year. And eventually in 1000 AD, the Roman Catholic Church decided to kind of refurbish that. Okay. Instead of making it about the evil spirits, they started to make it about the saints, and they called it All Saints Day. They marked November 1st, and today is still called All Saints Day. And then they would end up calling the 31st, the day before, All Hallows Eve. So when we revere something, we call it hallow. Like when we say the Lord's Prayer, hallowed be thy name. You get what I'm saying? So 31st is now called All Hallows Eve to remark, the revering of the saints, and then eventually turn from All Hallow Eve to Halloween. I know that was a lot. All right, so the origin story of Halloween is clear as mud, right? It's a refurbished version of a Celtic pagan worship that we're, now doing candy and ghouls and goblins, right? Clear as mud. But before I answer this question directly, I do want to say there are some universal truths us as Christians need to abide by when it comes to Halloween. This aspect of Halloween, the sensationalism of the dead, is something we absolutely do not need to partake of. It is forbidden. Let's go in the book of Leviticus. We're going to go chapter 19, verse 31. It says, do not turn to mediums or seek spiritualists, for you will be defiled by them. So the Ouija board, excuse my language. Hell no, we don't do the Ouija board. All the demonic seances that kids used to do. I remember like stiff as a board, those finger thing. Hey, just know that's something you definitely should not be a part of. Remember the book of 1 Timothy chapter 2, verse 5, for there is one God and there is one mediator between God and man, the man Jesus Christ. That's what we hold on to. Okay. We don't seek these mediums. We seek Christ as our only mediator to God. I would say if you do allow your kids to dress up, do not make them resemble the dead of any sort, any zombies, any vampires, ghouls, goblins, anything that has to do with the dead. Do not associate them with that. The famous Levitical law that talks about not making markings for yourself of the dead in order to remember them. That's something we definitely just need to steer clear of. But to answer this question directly, should Christians celebrate Halloween? The answer, or I wouldn't even say celebrate, right? Participate in the festivities of Halloween. I say the answer is both yes to some and no to others. There is an aspect of the low hanging fruit in order to preach the gospel, something that my mother did. If you want to call that partaking in festivities, so be it. We're doing it for the cause of Christ, right? I'm thinking about some of these things as a kid that I weren't allowed to do, such as read Harry Potter books, right? Or watch The Nightmare on Elm Street, or all these other horror flicks and films. And I'm realizing as I get older, my mom was on to something 100%. And I think this is the message for the parents. I think we have to be extremely vigilant or what we allow our children access to, especially concerning the dead, witchcraft, Harry Potter, and those things of those nature. For instance, I was a huge fan of the Power Rangers growing up. Huge fans, like most of you 90s kids. I literally thought in my mind there was a blurring between fantasy and real. I literally thought I was the Red Ranger. You couldn't tell me nothing. I was downstairs practicing all my moves. So when the fight was ready and Zordon needed me, I was there. And that line was blurred. I'm telling you, I'm being 100% serious. I thought I was a Power Ranger. Okay. When it came to what else did I really enjoyed growing up? I would say the Ninja Turtles as well. I thought I was Raphael. 100%. The line was blurred. And I can only imagine if you allow your kids to read Harry Potter and where they don't have the development to distinguish good from bad and evil, that they start thinking more or less about the story of Harry Potter and more about the methodology and the witchcraft and the wizardry and the things that capture Harry people who read Harry Potter's eyes. Okay, and I'm gonna be 100% honest with you. As an adult, I've read Harry Potter, and because I can distinguish between fantasy in reality, I thoroughly enjoyed the book. There are certain aspects of Harry Potter that I thought were touched on some truth. How love kind of conquers all, and these selfless acts that not only Harry's father and mother had, but Ron and Hermione had with each other. Those selfless acts wins all and defeats all types of evil things, even the spiritual things that are evil. That love essentially conquers on selflessness acts do that well. But I can only do that as a grown man. I can only delineate and distinguish that as a grown man. I couldn't distinguish that as a kid. There's no way you can tell me a child can distinguish between using spiritual forces in order to defeat evil. You get what I'm saying? Like a child can't do that. So we do have to be careful and vigilant on what we allow our children access to, i.e. Harry Potter or the Ouija board nonsense or things like that. And so for some, yeah, honestly, your kids, your family, what they thrive on. You don't need to participate in Halloween. But for others, if your kids are emotionally, spiritually mature, then by all means, for God's glory, without association with the dead, have at it. You get what I'm saying? Have at it, y'all. Okay, I know I'm long-winded, but just hear me out. It's getting to a point where you have to ask yourself, where are we going to draw the line, especially when it comes to these holidays, right? I understand that Halloween is not a covering up of the pagan worship. It's very transparent with the demonic spirits and stuff like that. But let's talk about Easter. Right, and the Easter Bunny, which is a celebration of Ishtar, very pagan. Well, the celebration of Christmas and all the things that come with Christmas that are not tied to Christ. I'm not talking about nativity, but all the other things that we do that are not tied to Christ. Where are you going to draw the line? Because what we want to do is be consistent, okay? And of course, we want God to give us grace, but we want to be consistent in our messaging and our preaching to the world. Okay, this is all I have for y'all for this episode of #ItIsWritten. What I want you to do is like, comment, share, and subscribe. I love y'all. I think I'm actually going to upload this whole episode onto the Facebook page. But anyways, I love y'all. Y'all stay blessed and be careful out there on Halloween.